Hello and welcome to the agenda on Politics Social. I'm Graham Hughes and I'm joined as always by Phil Moorhouse. How you doing, Phil? You all right, mate?
I'm all right, yes. I'm very
Yes.
tired. I got no sleep last night, but never mind.
Oh
It just meant
no.
I got extra work done.
Okay, well that's good. That's a good thing. So today is the 5th anniversary of Welcome to the Brexit, sir. I've actually got the Evening Standard from 5 years ago today, Friday, the 31st of January 2020, and it's got farewell but not goodbye. It's also got mentions of killer virus, two
Yeah,
cases in Britain.
well,
Don't know what
this is
happened with
what
that
I was
virus.
I
Never
was
heard about it
saying
again.
in my first video today. It's like, it was almost like people going to Boris Johnson, should we do something about this deadly pandemic? No, we must make Big Ben chime.
Yes,
That was his priority at the time, if you recall.
yes,
Big Ben had to chime to signal
yeah.
the end, and it's like, okay, I'm sure it's fine. I'm sure it's all in hand. Um, yes.
Yes, well, we'll get into that in a moment. But first of all, a big shout out to everyone in the chat. We've got Billy Kershaw there, we've got Martin Harrow, we've got Victoria Townsend, Pete's Music, Maggie Pie. Hi, we've got Reagan Elite in there as well, which is brilliant. If you'd like to join them in the chat, all you need to do is hit that subscribe button, which doesn't seem to be working for me. Hang on, here we go, subscribe, and wait for about a minute, and you'll be able to join them in the chat. But don't be a troll, because we'll kick you off, because we can do that. And then you have to watch, but you won't be able to do anything about it. Anyway, Jup James is saying, greetings from Germany, where we got our first taste of Conservatives working together with the AFD. That's not good. That's really not good. But let's talk about Brexit. So, how have the last 5 years gone, Phil? Overall, better than you
Well,
thought, or worse than you
it's
thought, or just
um,
as you thought?
it's not exactly as I thought, because COVID and the war in Ukraine obviously did muddy the water a lot.
Yes. Yes. Okay.
Had we, it's quite funny because those things actually made Brexit worse, but they
Yes.
also, for some people, made it less noticeable if they didn't want to notice it.
Right.
So,
Yeah, I get that.
but it's like we were told. Daniel Hannan famously wrote what would happen 5 years after we left the EU,
He did. He
and
did.
if you turn it upside down, it's right. It's like
It
one
was
of
the
those
opposite
charts.
of everything he
If
said
we just turn
would
it
happen.
upside down, it's fine.
Yes. So we've got more barriers, less growth in
Got
trade.
the extra one today.
Oh, what's the extra one?
There's a new one today. The security and safety, or safety and security measures. So basically, there's an extra bit of paperwork for people from the EU importing into Britain now.
Oh,
Important. I
right.
mean, you
Cool.
need it. It's safety documentation. Obviously, you need
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
but it is nonetheless extra documentation, which the haulier is responsible for making sure they have it. And
Yeah.
I was given the briefing by someone who works in logistics who watches my channel, and he sent me the PDF.
Is it
And I was
Keir and the
looking
van
through it, and I
driver by any
thought,
chance? No.
but I was thinking about people like Keir and the van driver, and I was thinking to myself, okay, so the big logistics companies will be up on this. What
Yes.
about the sole trader, so to speak? What about the individuals? Will everyone know about this?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or will they just think after 5 years, surely everything's sorted now? And it's like, no, it's never going to be sorted.
No. No. It's never going to be fixed.
Because you've always got
It's a
something
feature,
new you'll
not
have
a
to
bug.
do. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's
Absolutely.
always something. Every time either market changes something,
Yeah.
the other one has to protect its own market and respond. And, it happens all over the place. It's happened for decades.
Yeah.
But you don't really notice it when Mongolia changes something. But you do tend to notice when the large market on your doorstep changes something.
Yes. Yeah. So you're right. Small businesses, small hauliers, small couriers, they've been the hardest hit by this. In fact, our service trade with the EU has continued to grow, probably at the same rate as it would have done if we had
It
remained
has,
in the
yeah.
EU. But our goods trade, actual physical things that we sell, it really has gone off a cliff. Like, it's not even flatlined, it's gone down.
It
And
has to, because first of all, there's some goods you cannot transport. Other goods are now more expensive because
Yeah.
of tariffs.
Yeah.
It wasn't a tariff-free deal.
yeah,
Other goods require paperwork. So that costs money and takes time to check, and that costs as well.
Yeah.
And it slows everything up. So inevitably you lose.
Yeah.
And also, it's not worth it for someone to send a small consignment of something.
Yeah.
Now, it doesn't even have to be food, just a small package. The paperwork alone, even if you can make a profit, it's too much hassle for some small businesses.
Yeah. Yeah. But we've got trade deals with other countries now,
Which are worth 0%. Literally
Uh,
0%.
yes.
In fact, no, actually, we have to be clear about this. So if you read the economic assessments, which were done by the Conservative government, they're worth 0% to our GDP after 30 years. We don't even get the 0% for 30 years.
Whoa.
Whereas we got the -4% straight away. Actually, I think it was more like -5%, but they think it's sort of -4% as a long-term thing is about right. That's what they think.
Right, I'm just trying to get the actual stats up here. Save image.
The BBC Verified did quite a nice little thing. They had a little collection of graphs.
Yes.
But I did have to get my balance of trade chart out from Statista to make sense of their export one. Because you could imagine, if you looked at the BBC's graph, which is right, it's not a fiddled graph or anything, it's ONS.
Yeah.
But you could imagine that our overall balance of trade is at least positive, but it's not, it's negative.
So I've just covered my face, as you can see on the virtual cam there, with the Brexit trade deals. This is the official impact assessments. This is from the government. You've got the CPTPP, 11 nations, the GDP boost impact, billions per year, comes to 0.08% of our GDP.
And actually, that's what it was at the time. They think that might be a bit optimistic now.
Yeah.
And that was also after decades.
Australia, exactly the same figure, 0.08%, 2.3 billion. I think that like one of the fucking Avengers movies took more money than that at the box office.
The thing is,
one movie.
Well, yeah. The thing is, Australia's in the CPTPP, so it's like we didn't actually gain anything extra.
Yeah.
It's like all the rest of the members are worth one Australia.
Yeah, exactly. New Zealand there with 0.03%. Not a surprise. I mean, the population of New Zealand is about 4.7 million people. It's tiny.
Quite a lot of sheep, though.
No, I've got a lot of sheep. And then the possible US-UK one, which they keep banging on about, you're talking about 0.07% to 0.16%. Like, that's pathetic, considering the size of the US market.
And reality as well, because America, like, it doesn't matter who's the president or how Anglophilic they are. It makes no difference. The deal will require the wholesale privatization of the NHS because the pharmaceutical lobby won't wear anything else.
So that's going to impact our GDP because
So
everyone's going to be ill. Everyone's going to be ill and dying.
If you wanted a free trade agreement, so you would. I mean, you can get bilateral agreements. I mean, the EU has loads of actual trade deals with America, just not a free trade agreement.
Yeah, yeah.
So steer clear of that.
What else have we got here? We've got the possible UK and India trade deal, which will add. This is with over 1.4 billion people, right? And it's going to add 0.12%.
And do you know what that's based on as well?
0.22% to our GDP.
Do you know why it would boost our GDP by more than all the others?
What?
Because it would require lots more immigration from India to work in British companies.
That's very true.
Because the only source of growth, and the Bank of England are clear about this, the OBR are clear about this, the only source of growth we have had for years is from immigration.
Yeah, yeah. And then the final one, Brexit impact, minus 100 billion pounds a year, every year, and the percentage that's been taken away from the UK GDP is 4%, which, I'm not the best mathematician in the world, but what is that? Is that 40 times what we're getting back?
It sort of doesn't work out quite like that because that 4% represents. So it's a bit like saying we're at 96% of where we should be, according to the model.
Yeah.
Rather than taking the 4% off what we are. But nonetheless, it's, you know, it massively outweighs, and it has to as well. I mean, some years ago when we'd done this, I did a little calculation. I worked out, right, let's say we get the same sort of standard of deal of trade deal that we already had at the time, the Australia. We had one with Japan, sort of. It wasn't, you know, that was a bolt on. And I said, let's just assume that. And I worked it out in terms of like the total amount of trade that these countries have. And there just isn't enough money in the world to outweigh Brexit. If you had those types of trade deals, those free trade agreements with literally the whole world, it doesn't come to what we've lost from not. See, this is the plan. We were going to have a free trade agreement with everyone in the world apart from Europe.
Yeah.
Where a free trade agreement, of course, is not free trade any more than the Democratic People's Republic of Korea is democratic or a republic.
It is in Korea, though, to be fair.
It is in Korea. And there are people there. But it doesn't, you know, it doesn't really belong to them, but never mind. But it's a free trade. We had free trade. That was actual free trade, what we had. It was like someone in Portugal says, I want you to send me some stuff. And you go, yeah, sure, it'll be there in a couple of days.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was all there was to it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it does seem absolutely bananas what we've done here. I mean, one of the things I used to say a lot when we were fighting Brexit, explaining to people that there's 54 countries in Africa, which usually came as a bit of a shock to most people because they don't realise there's that many countries in Africa. And I'll explain that if you added all their GDPs together, like the GDP of, you know, all the oil in Angola, all the gold in South Africa, all the trade that passes through the Suez Canal in Egypt, you put that all together, and the GDP combined of 54 countries comes out to less than the GDP of France on its own, just our closest neighbour. Not including Ireland. Obviously, Ireland's doing all right for itself. So if you chart it on a graph, you can go, you know, I know GDP is not a perfect measure, but you can go 1997 to 2007, our GDP doubled in this country. It doubled from about $1.5 trillion to about $3 trillion. And it's still, to this day, nearly 20 years later, $3 trillion. And the talk of growth, you know, Tories like to go on about growth. Everyone likes to go on about growth. It's just not happened. It's not. We were recovering all right until we decided to vote for Brexit. I just got a quick super chat to announce. Thank you very much to Brad W for the £5 super chat. The many idiot politicians who follow the Brexit vote, including regulars chopping and changing of PMs, is one of the less spoken Brexit costs. Yeah.
Well, do you know what Steve Bray did today?
No.
So he caught hold of Richard Tice.
Oh.
And he asked him, "Can you give me a Brexit benefit?" Then, do you know what he said?
Oh God, he probably said something fucking stupid, didn't he?
Yeah.
Gives you something to do, or what? What did he say?
No, he said Trump.
Oh, what
and
a horror!
Then, because he realised that Steve had asked him for benefits, plural, he said Trump again, thinking that counts.
Jesus.
So two Trumps is a benefit,
and that benefit for very, very rich people whose daddies were very rich and successful.
If that's the best you can come up, I mean, first of all, it's not clear how Brexit enabled Trump, but I know they were both enabled by the same thing.
Yeah.
But if that's the best you can come up with after 5 years, if you're going to try and say that Brexit's this great thing after 5 years, if the best you're asked for benefits, right? And all you can come up with is something that is neither a benefit nor anything to do with Brexit.
Or you know, it's someone else's country. Yeah. It's someone else's country. I think
if we hadn't left the EU, Trump would still have won, and he'd have still have won this time. I mean, there's like nothing would have changed over there.
Yeah. So I've got a couple of graphs that I got from the BBC. The first one, we were mentioning it before. Since Brexit, UK goods exports are down and service exports are up. But I mean, that is
only up like they were growing. They grow anyway. They're supposed to grow. and we are quite good at services, and that wasn't hit as badly by Brexit.
But what's interesting is the services were hit by Brexit because you can see a negative dip.
Are you sure that's not the pandemic?
No, well, no, because you see it going up until 2016, and then it flatlines.
I would just be a little bit. Oh well, that was due to the lack of inward investment we suddenly had.
Yeah,
after 2016,
and actually
stopped at 2016.
The downturn, if you look at the map there, the graph, it says UK leaves single market, so that would have been that line is January 2020, and the dip is before then, so it's before the pandemic.
Yeah,
and then we'll be recovering from there.
The pandemic, no, that is the pandemic. Because the pandemic was before we left the single market.
Oh, I thought that was because that would have been 2021.
Big dip.
Sorry, December 2020. Okay, all right. Sorry, I thought that was referring to the date we left the EU, but obviously we were still an effective member for quite a long time.
Yeah, we didn't. I mean, this is the point. And when we left the EU, January the 31st, 2020, that was it. The Tories had discharged their will of the people. They could have stayed in the single market and customs union, and that had nothing to do with the referendum.
Yes,
nothing at all to do with it. So we could have just left our membership and stayed in the single market and customs union. And although that would have been ridiculous, nonetheless, it wouldn't have turned people off Brexit, because although we wouldn't be deciding these rules and we wouldn't be able to decide yay or nay trade deals with other countries, we would still be benefiting from that large open market.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the no paperwork.
Well, let's have a look at migration. So here's a graph from the BBC. Net migration to the UK. That is quite phenomenal. You see that hockey stick? Just goes up. That's non-EU immigration.
And the thing is, as well, I've seen some Brexiteers at the moment. It's like the penny's almost dropping. There was someone going on just this week about, it's because we get these people from Africa and they bring over all these dependents. It's like, yeah, because they live a long way away. If you have someone from like France or Belgium that just gets a job over here, they come and do a job over here for a year or two or something like that, right? They can keep travelling back if necessary. They may bring their family here, but they don't necessarily.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're coming from Africa or Asia, that's a big commitment. Yeah. So you're bringing the family. And this is what Tony Blair had tried to warn them about before as well. He said, this is what's going to happen. And I understand how, for some people, it sounds mental that you stop freedom of movement and your immigration goes up. But that's actually what happens.
That's literally what happened.
It's actually what happens. And it's what people said would happen beforehand.
Yep.
I can appreciate how it's not intuitive, but he can explain it quite simply.
Yeah.
In that, I mean, it's like if you hire someone from your local town, they're just going to come and work for you. You hire someone, like if you're a farmer and you need your seasonal labour, for example, and you hire someone from 200 miles away, they're bringing their family. They're not spending all summer on their own.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there you go. I mean, it is just like the opposite of what the Brexiters voted for.
Yeah.
They voted for fewer people from other places coming here.
They voted
now
for
they've got
lower
more
costs.
people from places they like even less. Dickheads. Anyway, Maggie Pye, thank you very much for the super chat. Trump and Brexit were both enabled by Putin.
Yes. You go back to the thing. Suella Braverman earlier this week, and she was talking about, people who come here should respect our Judeo-Christian culture, which we don't have, by the way. But okay, it's like, so you told all the workers from other Judeo-Christian cultures to piss off, and then your government and you as Home Secretary they spent money on attracting people from Asia and Africa to come to Britain to replace them.
Yep.
And Suella Braverman was one of the Home Secretaries who did that.
Do you see how that's dog whistle though for the ethnic tensions, sectarian tensions in her family's country of Nigeria, where the south half is basically very, very Christian and the north half is very, very Islamic. It's very Muslim. And she's basically saying there, you know what, we should have Nigerians coming here, such as my family, but only the good ones.
Yeah, yeah.
Dog whistle.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's not doing a very... Can I just talk about Suella Braverman's, like, terrible, terrible job? I mean, I kind of wanted to stay. I wanted to stay till the next election, Phil, because she's so bad at it.
No, and this is what I
Did
said.
you think she'd be this bad?
Yeah.
Oh, you did, because I didn't think she'd be this bad.
Do you mean Badenoch or Bravo?
Yeah, Badenoch. Sorry,
Badenoch. Yeah. No, I said before she'll be as mad as Liz Truss and as bad at politics as Sunak. I knew she'd be this bad.
Sorry, were you talking about Braverman?
Yeah, I was talking about Suella Braverman.
Oh well, she'll be talking about Hinduism
America.
then, rather than Islamic people coming from.
She was like, her parents
India.
were like, oh no, hang on, was she?
Yeah, she's Hindu. I think, or is she Buddhist? I think she might be Buddhist.
I don't actually think she's either, but
Rishi
if you mean in
Sunak's
terms of her
definitely
family,
Hindu.
yeah, Sunak's Hindu.
Yeah, he's got the little bracelets and everything. But yeah, isn't she? I don't know, but I always worry when someone whose family heritage come from, different backgrounds somewhere, else in the world, and they start going in for this dog whistle stuff. You're like, this isn't going to end well for you. They're not going to keep you, except maybe as a pet or something. Oh, she's one of the good ones, Phil. She's one of the good ones.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like Israel. Like, do the Israelis seriously believe that when the Nazis take over the world, they'll go, oh, do you know what, Israel, we love you?
Well, this is why I couldn't believe Netanyahu. Of the many things I couldn't believe of Netanyahu defending Elon Musk's Nazi salute. Salute. I can get how he has to be diplomatic, right? Because he wanted Trump to send him all those bombs, which he has now duly done. But you would just say something like, oh, it wasn't intended to be like that, but it's a really bad look and he probably should, reflect on that. Something diplomatic like that.
Yeah. We've got a super chat came in from SG. Thank you so much, SG. That's very kind of you. That extreme immigration is what has mitigated some of the effects of Brexit. Our economy will be way worse without immigration. Yeah, absolutely.
Every report says so.
Yeah, scream it from the rooftops. Immigration is a good thing. Like, we rely on immigration for our country to work, and we've got skill shortages across.
It's not even just sectors. That anymore. Like I was talking recently again. We've got, like a lot of Western countries, negative birth rate. So it's really this simple. We don't have, even if we stopped letting the Tories knacker our education, and even if we had an education system now that trained the skills we needed, and we had a high skill population, we don't have physically enough people. And Labour's answer to this partly is AI, of course. With better technology, you can make individuals more productive, so you can keep GDP going. But when you do that, the money tends to sort of disappear upwards and outwards.
Yeah.
So it is better if you've got like more people to sustain that pension population. Because remember, Liz Truss, we say Liz Truss is mad, but she's not stupid. So she was putting her awesome intellect to the problem last year of what do we do about this impossible situation of the negative birth rate, but we also want low immigration, but we've got this large retired population. Well, she said, well, people should just retire at 80. Because, of course, first of all, that's a great way to win an election. Just say you're going to put the pension age to 80. And also, so the plan is to replace a load of fit, healthy migrant workers with septuagenarians.
Yeah.
Good luck. I'll see them picking beans in the fields.
So let's talk about travel for a moment, because obviously this is a subject close to my heart. Just more hassle for UK citizens. We're going to have to do the ETIAS system when it finally gets launched, hopefully later this year. There's going to be biometric entry checks, so they're going to scan your fingerprints, might scan your irises, take a photo of you as you go across borders. That takes so much time. And you think about how many hundreds of thousands of Brits go on holiday all at the same time to Benidorm or somewhere. I mean, just it's going to be absolute carnage. And, Brits can no longer work or live freely across the EU without additional paperwork, which, of course, the people who told you to vote for Brexit can afford. I can't afford it. Chris C, thank you very much. And it makes people from Britain less attractive to employers across Europe because
in the UK as well. In the UK. So let's say you're a service company, right? And part of your business is offering in-person training or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Well, if you hire a Polish worker, they've got an EU passport, right? They can hop back as long as they're obviously settled in this country. But if they've got a job here, obviously they are. So they can hop back and forth as much as they like. So you employ them to do that job. You don't employ the British worker unless they happen to be Irish.
Yeah, very good point. Or they have an Irish passport like Tommy Ten names. Thank you very much to Chris C for the £10 super chat. That's really kind of you. Thank you. Never ceases to amaze me that descendants of immigrants are so against immigration. It's as if they don't want others to have the same rights and opportunities that they benefit from.
It's called ladder kickers. Pull the ladder up, Jack.
Yeah, just bastards. But yeah, let's go on to laws, because this is an interesting one, right? So there's a couple of laws that have come in, and they've said this is because of Brexit that we could do this, or things that have happened. So the big one for the Tories was vaccination. We got the first vaccination against COVID in someone's arm in the world.
No, we didn't.
And we did that because we were outside the EU, right? Now, the mad thing about this is we were still technically under EU rules when that happened.
And the head of the vaccine programme said that actually, had we left the EU a year earlier, had it all been done a year earlier, we wouldn't have got those vaccines that quickly, because it was through the European Medicines Agency that we got them. We just happened to be... See, the reason why we got them first was purely because Europe was doing it collectively and they were still apportioning who was going to get how many doses first and stuff like that. That was all there was to it. But within a few months, we were overtaken. By the end of the year, I still have the chart somewhere, we were not even in 10th position in Europe. We weren't the first in the world either. We were the first of EU stroke former EU countries.
Yeah.
Israel, I think, was one of the first on the ball. But by the end of the year, we were not
behind.
even in 10th position.
Yeah, we were falling behind. I mean, I always talk about the fact that it's like, someone started they got to the first hurdle at the Grand National first, the first fence.
Yeah.
They didn't win the race though. But I got to the first. Can I get some money? Can I get some winnings? But you know what the Tories are like for wanting the winnings. Another law, which was trumped up by the Tories as like, oh, it's amazing, we've left the EU and now we can do this, was the tampon tax. So after the UK lobbied like crazy the EU to make it so that any members had to have at least 15% VAT on goods, right? So that when Poland joined the EU, they couldn't undercut us on everything, right? Because they didn't have to pay VAT, but we did. So we made sure there was a minimum of 15% on most goods, right? And that included tampons. So in 2021, the Tories went, hey, we've got rid of the VAT on tampons. And then the EU, a year later, did exactly the same thing. So had we stayed in the EU...
The other thing as well, position. I mean, it was such an easy thing to lobby for because it's clearly sexist. Because it's the idea of VAT is luxury you can goods. Have zero VAT on what are considered essentials.
It's only supposed to be on luxury goods. That's it. Anything that's VAT on it is apparently a luxury, like adult clothes.
And as I say, it always used to why me. So I used to go to, my dad owned his own business. We'd sometimes go to Macro, the wholesalers. And so you could see what had, because the prices never included, unlike most shops in the country, VAT. So you could see what was going to have VAT and what was zero VAT. And cakes, zero VAT, and biscuits not. And I thought, how's that work then? So obviously Mr. Kipling was on the committee that decided that one.
And then they had the big argument about Jaffa cakes, didn't they? About whether Jaffa cakes were...
Well, of course they're cakes.
And,
it was tea cakes. No, it was tea cakes. That was
Yeah.
the one where Marks and Spencer got a load of money back from the taxman, I think.
They had to change the recipe apparently of McDonald's buns in Ireland because under their VAT rules, even though bread does not have VAT because it's an
Yeah.
essential, there was so much sugar as a percentage of these buns in that you get your hamburgers in.
Really?
Yeah, it was classified as a confectionery. It was classified as a cake because it had so
Why
much
would you
sugar.
put
So they
that?
had to
Why
change the
would
recipe
you
to
just
avoid
I mean,
VAT.
they put all the sugar in the sauce, surely. So why? Do
Oh,
need
they
to
put sugar in
bread as
everything.
well?
Because sugar's madly addictive. So, like, the
Yeah,
more
but
sugar they put in, the more addictive
yeah,
the
but McDonald's is
products
shite. Bizarrely,
Is it?
honestly, like
You're the first person to say that.
But the thing is, I'll tell you what I don't understand. And this was a long time ago now, but when I went to America
Yeah.
and I had McDonald's there, it actually tasted all right. It's only our burgers that are shit.
Well, look, as a consummate traveller, like, I'll occasionally get a McDonald's somewhere, and I'll tell you why. Because I know I won't get ill. I will not get ill having a McDonald's. And if I do, I can sue them for lots of money. And I believe that Usain Bolt, before he does, before he, obviously he's retired now, but before he used to run, he'd arrive in a country, and for the whole week before he did his run, he would only
Yeah.
eat McDonald's. And you'll think,
Same
what the
reason, is
hell?
it?
Junk food? Why are you eating junk food, dude? And it's like, well, I know I'm not going to get ill because it's more important to me to
Yeah.
not get ill than,
Yeah.
that obviously he does enough exercise for it not to bother him too much about the amount
Yeah.
of junk in there.
Well, in a week's, yeah.
Also, cleanest toilets, Phil. Cleanest toilets. If you are in any given city in the world, the cleanest toilets. Unless you're in the UK. If you're anywhere else in the world, the toilets at McDonald's are really, really clean. Especially if you're somewhere where there's only squat toilets everywhere. You'll get a proper sit-down toilet at McDonald's. True story. But yeah, I was going to talk about VAT as well for private schools. So this is funny.
Yeah.
So the private school mafia who demanded that we leave the EU, the whole of them. I mean, like literally every single Brexiteer that you ever saw on TV going, yes, we should definitely leave the EU, was, you're not going to believe this, privately educated. And they were the ones screaming the loudest, now Labour are going to put VAT on school fees. I think that kicks in September. Am I right? Or is it already kicked in?
I think it's already kicked in.
Oh, kicked in January, kicked in this month. And we wouldn't have been able to do this had we been part of the EU. But
of course, we would have compensated for it by having an extra 40 billion quid in Rachel Reeves's pocket. Well, not
well,
their pocket,
true. But also, that supposes that the EU was some foreign entity that just told us what to do. Britain and other countries in Northern Europe had a huge amount of sway over what was happening in the EU. And there's no other country in Europe that is so reliant for everyone, the elite, the people who get to be on TV and write books and be in parliament and stuff, coming from private schools. So the other countries have less skin in the game when it comes to private schools.
I mean,
so
this
it wouldn't have been a big leap for
No.
the EU to say, yeah, okay, we can make an exception for that rule
Well,
on
also,
private schools.
the EU legislates for things all the time, and all you have to do is,
Yes.
just explain.
Why you need to do it.
You change things all the time. You
Yeah,
just change
exactly.
things all the time.
So that any of these so-called benefits, these three Brexit benefits, vaccines, tampon tax, and private school fees tax, it's just all of it is absolutely nebulous. There's no actual real benefit. And you remember that they wanted to get rid of all the EU rules, Phil. They want to get rid of 2,500 EU laws.
Yeah, they accidentally got rid of the right to equal pay for women for a bit until someone pointed out to Badenoch she'd maybe made a mistake there.
They said by the end of 2023, only 600 laws had been removed, and it was stuff about like the laws about harvesting fucking olives or something.
Yeah.
It was all stuff that just does not relate to the UK.
No, exactly.
That we just taken on board because we were part of the EU.
But yeah, they will say was just tidying up, which is like it's fine, but no one was ever going to refer to it anyway, so it didn't matter.
Yeah. Number 3, thank you very much for the super chat and the super words, which are private schools should be banned, too divisive. Well, it's what they did in Finland. They didn't just make them against the law. They made them against the constitution. They are constitutionally banned in Finland, and I think we should take our cue from them because now they have the best education system in the world, the best outcomes in the world. Gary DeSantis, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. Mickey D's, right by the Spanish Steps in Rome. I only use their toilet, would never touch the produce. If you go to the pyramids, the Great Pyramids in Giza, there is a KFC and a Burger King. Not Burger King, sorry. KFC and a Pizza Hut.
Pizza Hut, because they have that in Tenerife as well.
KFC and a Pizza Hut right next to the Sphinx. You can literally look out the window of the Pizza Hut and you can see the Sphinx.
I thought you were going to say joint together, because when I went to Tenerife, it was the greatest thing ever. They had, so you could order like a meal that was like a slice of pizza and some chicken.
Yeah. Or you get some chicken on the pizza, maybe. I don't know.
That's not how they say it.
But yes, I mean, absolute nonsense. So the positives, when you say go up to Richard Tice and say what are the positives, and he says we've got a Nazi in charge of America. That's the
rapist in charge of America.
Rapist in charge of America.
Who's just appointed a Nazi to like decide who to sack.
And they've sacked a bunch of people and got rid of a lot of regulations, and they got rid of the head of the FCC, and the plane crashed this week.
Yeah.
The first big major incident for years when it comes to planes.
And apparently it was someone else's fault, of course.
Oh, it was DEI. It was DEI's fault.
Yeah.
You know, I want to go around America and show them my list, my privateschoolmafia.com list, and say, this is what happens when you don't have DEI. Would you be able to get any of these jobs? Any of the fun jobs? Yeah. But yeah, so the other thing that they've said is, we've now saved, Phil, £350 million a week that would have otherwise gone into the EU.
Yeah,
have we?
Pretty sure.
Have we done that?
I'm pretty sure we've lost about $1 billion a week.
Yes.
In fact, it's $2 billion a week. It's $2 billion a week.
$2 billion.
That's as a country. That's as a country. As a government, it's nearer one.
Wow.
It's nearer $1 billion a week. That's what the Treasury's lost.
I'm going to have to stop you there because we have just had a mega chat. Come in. Mega chat! Thank you very much to Russell Cannon for £50. That is amazing. Thank you so much, Russell. You are an absolute legend. Brexit is one of my favourite topics. I remember the minute the referendum was announced, thinking it would be a really bad idea if the country votes to leave. Please keep fighting to get us back in. Yeah, Russell, absolutely. I mean, thank you so much for the super chat. And Phil and I love talking about Brexit because it's how we cut our teeth on this platform, isn't it? On YouTube.
Yes, I was hoping we'd be a little bit further advanced now.
What you mean on YouTube?
No,
well, that'd be talking about it anymore.
No, I mean, I sort of, the way I reasoned it was, look, a very hard Brexit is going to be noticeable. It's not going to be able to hide it. And then we had a deadly pandemic, and I thought,
yeah.
And then we had war in Europe, and I thought,
yeah.
And it's still not hiding it as such, because there's loads of people who, even if they can't see all the harms, at least recognise that the benefits never arrived.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, it's given them a ready excuse. Yeah. Oh, but there's this thing. It's like, yeah, but our inflation was high. It's like, yes, some inflation was down to the action we took to deal with COVID, furlough and all the rest of it. Some inflation was down to the fact that Russia decided to bomb the shit out of one of the largest agricultural nations in Europe. Yes. But our inflation was higher than others who had to deal with all that shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then, I mean,
we had COVID, we had Ukraine, but also we had the mini budget, which really stuffed things up.
Oh yeah.
I mean, the Tories absolutely did a number on us. But
apparently, when Rishi Sunak was made leader again and Prime Minister, and he had a meeting with Treasury staff with Jeremy Hunt, and he was going, there was this like pot of money there before, where that's gone, and they all just apparently went, yeah, it's gone. So that was the reserve, and which they then I mean, we knew at the time, but they pulled their own dodgy dealings to hide, the so-called black hole from the OBR, which was because I was confused as hell. I still say this day, I couldn't work it out. All the economists were saying they can't afford tax cuts. Then they announced 2 rounds of national insurance cuts, and I'm thinking, well, No one said the economy suddenly bounced back or anything. What's happening?
Yeah,
And we now know what's happened. They just lied to the OBR about how much money there was.
yeah, yeah. It's maddening, isn't it? So did you start making videos? I don't want to suggest that I had any say in any influence in this, but did you see the Three Blokes in the Pub videos before you started doing your own YouTube
I
stuff?
can't remember. I may have done, but in all honesty, it wasn't that anyway. So what happened was I was doing my gaming channel, and
Yeah,
then I stopped playing competitive. I'm actually going to start to do some casual content now, and I couldn't really work out how to do casual content.
yeah,
And so by that point, I liked doing YouTube. So I just started doing a blog where it was, or a vlog, I suppose, where I was just talking about like current affairs every now and then. But it wasn't really, I was just like farting about. And then I just happened, because I was just talking about what was in the news when I could be asked to do a video.
yeah.
And I did one on Brexit and it did really well. Then I did another one on Brexit, it did really well. So, and then I'm thinking to myself, I should just talk about politics. I like politics. And obviously, I knew that Brexit was going to be really crazy in 2019. So I thought,
Yeah.
right, from the 1st of January 2019, I'm going to do a video almost every day.
I wish we could still do the Three Blokes in the Pub format. I mean, it was difficult because it
It's
costs more
inefficient,
money.
Graham.
It's inefficient, yes. It costs more money to make the video than we ever got for making
You
the
can
video.
just see. In fact, you know what? And this was definitely before I saw your Three Blokes in the Pub. I had actually some time before tried doing a vlog, which was called Pub Talk. I think I still have the channel, but I think all I did was superimpose a pub thing behind me. But it was
That's
just
what we
I
do.
just didn't know what to do with it. I had the concept, but I had no idea what content to do.
That's
So I
what I
just
did
abandoned it.
during COVID when we couldn't actually get to the pub. I
Yeah.
just put a pub background in. Joe Gooding, thank you very much for joining the channel. Got a new member, which is really cool. And Andrew Ray, thank you very much for the £10 super chat. That's really kind of you. Can we discuss Starmer's red lines? Have they changed post-election at all? Can trade unions affect his opinion? How many backbencher MPs,
So,
Labour MPs, want customs union? The big sticking point in UK growth. Thank you
so
so much, Andrew, for first of all the super chat, but secondly, this is exactly what we were going to talk about in the last 15 minutes of the show. So yes, Phil, go.
I mean, you could call them Starmer's red
Unleash
lines.
Phil.
He has to take responsibility, sure. But in terms of changing his opinion, like Keir Starmer is literally the most famous Remainer in the country. I mean, he didn't get kicked in the head by a
That's
horse.
me. That's
He,
me. That's me or
no,
Femi.
Keir Starmer. If you ask anyone, random person on the street,
That's like Graham Hughes.
The most famous person who was trying to stop Brexit, they'll say Keir Starmer. I've tested this out.
Okay.
Anyway, the I didn't go across the whole country. I don't like traveling like you, but I assume it's everywhere. Now, he didn't get kicked in the head by a horse. He is very pro EU. So is basically the government. There are almost no Lexiteers left in the Parliamentary Labour Party. Even on Labour forums, I noticed after
They all left with
after Brexit
Corbyn.
happened. Well, even before then, they were going very quiet on it. So it was, you just don't get it. There's no debate. There's no this, there's no that. I also think, because you got to remember Momentum, which was the group designed to support Corbyn, they were pro EU, they were anti-Brexit. So I think what you also had was a lot of Corbyn supporters who felt that they had to somehow train themselves to think there was a cause for leaving the EU because they knew he wanted to leave the EU, and they don't think they really believed it. But anyway, there is no debate within Labour about it. It's like the few tight little people who are still into it. There's no real debate in it. The MPs know there's no real debate in it. They know that it's hampering growth. They know they need growth.
Yeah.
So it's entirely political.
I have
So
a
in
question
terms of
though.
changing his opinion, the way to change his opinion is to change the opinion of key voters.
Okay, I have a question though, because David has just said, "What about James O'Brexit?" I mean James O'Brien. I would say he's the most famous Remainer.
No, most people don't know who he is. He's like really big as a broadcaster, but most people know them if you listen to them.
Okay,
And
all
maybe
right.
there's a few fringe of some other people, but most people, if you can do it, don't go down the street and just say, do you know who James O'Brien is? And a lot of people, I mean, you might get the odd one who does, but a lot of people don't. If they don't listen to the radio, they won't know who he is.
Well, it's
Not a
most
lot of
listened to
people
radio
are
station
politically.
radio
Yeah, but not a lot of
broadcasting
people
in the
listen to
country.
radio, other than like they might listen to some music radio while they're in the car.
Yeah.
But like you don't even do that. I mean, what do you have around the house? You have like Amazon Music on the Echo
Mm.
or the Alexa, whatever you call it.
Okay. All right.
Call,
Well.
call ours Ziggy.
Okay. So there's no one in the Labour Party who actually wants this shit. What next?
So at the moment, they're able to do certain things on the quiet. So Kemi Badenoch thinks she can make a fuss about joining the Pan-European Mediterranean Convention, even though even raging Brexiteers like Frosty the No Man and Daniel Hannan are saying, no, of course we should join. Like the actual Brexiteers are saying, no, we've got no problem with this. Because the only people who could have a problem with it are the ones who want to hurt our economy. The Pan-European Mediterranean Convention it's not customs union, so you can still set your own like customs schedule. There's no freedom of movement attached to it. There's nothing to do with standards. You can even leave the ECHR and still be in it, which would be a mad idea. But you could, because not everyone who's a member of the PEM is a member of the ECHR. So like you could do anything. But Badenoch is just opposing it because she'll just oppose anything that might actually create some growth. But there are things that Labour can do on the quiet. They're not doing them as quickly as some people would like because they're farting about.
Yeah, and also, I mean, yeah, Phil, person impersonator saying, "Sorry, Phil, I've not thought of Starmer as a hardcore Remainer." No, I wouldn't either. I mean, he just wasn't like.
He was. He was the one pushing very, very hard inside Labour to, get this referendum with Remain as an option.
Yeah.
And I mean, the other thing as well, I mean, Mr. We shouldn't be attending protests because we're going to be the party of power, not protest. He turned up to the Brexit protests. He was there.
Only one of them, I think.
No, he turned up to them.
There was a few that he came to, but it wasn't that many. We got Tom Watson. We got loads of backbenchers to come along.
And you'll have them now. There's loads of like even now with Labour in government, who you'd think to yourself like the SNP and Lib Dem stuff like that, but no, there's more Labour MPs standing up asking why aren't we going back into the EU effectively, or they're doing it on the sly, obviously, but asking questions about the EU than there are just because there's more of them. Like in the debate yesterday on proportional representation, it was mostly Labour MPs. There were obviously ones from other parties who want it as well. So you had Lib Dem MPs taking part, but there were more Labour MPs because there are more Labour MPs.
Yeah.
So Labour.
So
Labour MPs.
If even Daniel Hannan is saying it'd be a good idea to join this customs union.
Oh yeah, we're joining it. It's not a customs union, but we are joining it.
Yeah. It's not the customs union.
No, it's a customs arrangement.
Yes. Yeah. When you say we're joining it, why do Labour continue to refer to their red lines? We saw Rachel Reeves being interviewed yesterday by Peston, and he was just like, "Listen, we need to rejoin the EU, and then we'll get loads of money." And she's like, "No, but we said in our manifesto that we weren't going to rejoin."
So they won't obviously break that. So there's two issues here. The first of which is some of their key, because remember, your vote doesn't count as much as someone else's vote. So of the key voters, there's still a disproportionate number is still a bit Brexity, right? And not all of it is because they're like pro-Brexit. Some of them are not, but they are against the idea of the reopening the old wounds. That is actually really sore for a lot of people because a lot of relationships were actually destroyed, so they don't want it again. Tied to the fact that if Keir Starmer as soon as he came into power last July, if the first thing he'd done was to say, I'm writing to Ursula von der Leyen to ask if we can begin talks to join the EU, we would not be joining the EU until he was no longer Prime Minister. So, so it's one of those things. It's like, it would take a very long time to do. And the same applies to join the single market. That might take longer, ironically. It takes a very long time to do. So it's not something that deals with the economic problem we've got right now. So no matter what position they took on Brexit,
Yeah.
they would have to deal with, they'd have to have an economic plan that took account of the fact we're outside the EU, regardless. And they'd risk losing some key votes when they already didn't, it was a bit tight as it was.
Yeah.
So that's the issue. And the other thing as well is, and I keep saying this, it doesn't slow us down, the fact that they're not saying that now. They could, after, like, let's say they have, I mean, even Peter Mandelson, who we know is a close advisor to Starmer, he was saying, just when Labour were in government, he was saying it's the sort of thing we could probably look at, because they've got to fix all these things now. Now, I would want it to be quicker than that, but when you've got someone like him saying it's the sort of thing that we could be looking at, as specifically joining the EU, he wasn't just messing about with single market nonsense, joining the EU after they've got their plans in place. So you might be talking about midway through the next decade. Now, I would rather it was sooner. I would rather that at the next because their red lines are the red lines. They're in the manifesto. They must not be making it look like they're playing fast and loose with the trust of the public. But it lasts for one parliament. I would like a much softer line going into the next election. That's what I would like to push for. And that's why I think instead of people going on about, they've said no to a youth
mobility scheme
movement deal, like when they haven't, and they've actually said they're going to do it, but off the record. And the PEM,
Phil,
they've
that's
also said
good. You know that, but no one else knows that shit. We just hear, like, every time it's brought up in an interview or something, the minister will just go, "Now, we're not doing that." That sounds wank.
Well, no, they say it's not our plan. They never say we're not doing it. They always just say it's not part of our plan or we're not looking at that.
Yeah, look, I agree totally that the dial needs to shift substantially, because of always that worry that if we go gung-ho back into the EU too fast, when we're not taking the population, the vast majority of the population along with that, then we'll be back out the EU in another 5 years' time.
We won't be in the first place, because the other thing to consider, although I don't usually play on this too much because it's largely relevant and certainly speculative, but right now, let's say Keir Starmer had said that. So let's say the political situation allowed him to say that, and he wanted a referendum on and the way I would do it, I always say there should be, in law, 2 referenda. There should be the first one, which is only permission to begin talks.
Yeah.
And then the second one is on the terms of entry.
Yeah.
So in other words, doing it top and tail like they should have happened in the first place. So let's say he wanted that first referendum this parliament. We'd lose it. We would lose it. Because people are going about, but there's this majority. There was a majority before the last Brexit referendum. Then what happened? All the money decided that they wanted to persuade people with very sophisticated targeting. And
all the rich people.
And now we've got Elon Musk in control of Twitter as well. If we had a referendum right now,
Nazi doing Nazi salutes,
a referendum right now, we would lose it. We'd absolutely lose it. So we have to also get ourselves. We need many. You can't just point to a thing. 55% want to join the EU. It's like, now ask them about losing the pound. Now ask them about this. Now ask them about that. Remember the first time round, they just made up bullshit. Turkey's going to join the EU and we can't stop them. When it's like, you have to have unanimous approval to join the EU. What happened there? Did Turkey join? Did they? Bollocks. Because no one else wants them to join until they sort themselves out.
They were going to take away our tea bags. They were going to kill the polar bears. It sounds like I'm making shit up just to be funny, but these are actual adverts that went out to people, through Cambridge Analytica's stolen data.
And they pushed some
Facebook.
They really pushed some very, very nasty adverts talking about migrant crime and things like that.
Yeah, making point.
So they will just straight up lie, and they'll point out all sorts of things. We're not ready to fight the referendum yet.
Yeah. Okay, so that was the point I was getting to. I was going to say, look, I understand that we have to wait until the population comes round on this.
Well, I'd rather push it. I don't like the
That's
idea
what I was
of
going to
just
say.
waiting.
Can't Labour start just saying it would be good, but we need to get the public on side? You know?
No,
Why not?
because the Daily Express, remember, was saying that, as soon as you turn your back, Keir Starmer's going to take us back into the EU probably sometime next Tuesday. So that's why now. I think in some ways they are being a bit too cagey on their language. I do agree with that, but in general
Yes.
terms, you don't want to because they will just say this is their plan all along. They've been deceiving you.
Then the
Slowly,
comeback to that
slowly,
is
drip, drip,
no.
thin end of the wedge.
We are servants of the people, and if the people want that, then we will
Yeah, I
obviously
would like.
do
Yeah,
our.
I mean,
That's the way you. That's the way you.
yeah,
If I
I
was a
would do
politician,
that.
that's the way I would just react to any question that was asked me about
It
fucking
is, yeah.
anything. You know.
I mean, I've said that enough times as well when people have said, tried to work out Keir Starmer's politics based on the policies. It's like they're not his policies. Like they're effectively it's a fusion of the policies that he and his cabinet
Yeah.
think are good and within
Yeah.
the Overton window.
I,
So
one of the things that always wound me up about like people who go, "Oh, Starmer, he's a liar," because he said he was going to do all this stuff when we elected him, and then he never did the things. It's like, no, he said he wanted to do things. Like it's not a
also,
dictatorship. It's got to go
yeah,
through the shadow cabinet as it was now, the
yeah,
cabinet as it is now. They have to take collective responsibility for any decisions that are made.
yeah.
Just because you've got a leader that wants to do X, Y, Z doesn't mean they can necessarily do it because we live in a democracy and that should be celebrated. Oh, I wish you'd run Labour more like a dictatorship. That would be best. It's like, no, it wouldn't. But yeah, they've all got to take responsibility of that.
And also the vast majority of the stuff that was even in his 10 aims still in the manifesto.
Yeah.
Vast majority of it's in there.
Yeah. Chris,
and all of the 10 points are in there because they all talk about these 10 things. Every single one of those 10 things is in there.
Yeah. Chris C dropped in a super chat. Thank you. Labour need to be honest with the public. I think that Labour are fairly honest as far as politicians are concerned. It's just that their comms are shit.
Yeah. So I always say there's honesty and political honesty. Political honesty
You're all
is
idiots.
where because people punish honesty. People punish honesty in politics. I'm sorry, it's our fault. But there's political honesty, which is what I define as when a party says it's going to do a thing, it does it. That's not so. In terms of what they say, yeah, they lie. Starmer lies, Rayner lies, Reeves lies, everyone lies, because the people do not want to be told the truth. But if you say you're going to do a thing, or you say you're not going to do a thing, then most parties are honest enough in that regard. The Conservatives are not, Reform UK are not.
Yeah.
And I know you'll say Reform UK haven't been tested yet, but we know they're not. Like people have tried to tell me recently when I've been talking about Nigel Farage and his privatised. Oh no, it's the French system he wants. It's the French. Well, first of all, the French system would also not be approved by Reform UK supporters. But nonetheless, it's like, yeah, he says that. But I remember in 2016, he was talking about, the Norwegian model and the Swiss model. In other words, that we would remain in the single market. And then the second the results came in, all of a sudden, oh no, we want the American model. And it'll be exactly the same for healthcare. Oh, the French model. Yeah, the French healthcare is really good. Yeah, it's quite expensive though. Yeah, but it's really good. And people pay for it as well as, the amount the state pays for it's it's higher than ours. And there's co-payment systems in it as well. Now, not everyone pays for treatment, but there are people who pay for treatment in the French system. So it's actually one of the most expensive. And I worked out, even if you take away the co-payments, if you just look at the state funding, it would require an 18% boost in this country to achieve the same funding.
Yeah.
And you try telling Reform UK voters that you want to move to this system that means they'll have to pay much more tax.
Indeed. We've got a super chat come in from SG. The public can't handle the truth. Say it like Tom Cruise. I'll try to. That was my best one. I'm
pretty sure it was Jack Nicholson.
It was Jack Nicholson and A Few Good Men who actually said, "You can't handle the truth." But I can't do an impression of him either. So thank you very much for the money, though, SG. That's very kind of you. Sorry, I mean Jack Nicholson. You can't handle the truth. Does that sound like Jack Nicholson?
It sounds like him,
Does it
but
sound like
not
Christian
when
Slater trying to do an impression of Jack Nicholson?
It did sound a little like him, but obviously not in that context because he was shouting at the time.
I'm honestly, of all the actors out there, Jack Nicholson's got to be one of my favourite. He's just brilliant and everything.
Oh, he is very good. Yes. Tom Cruise is a very good actor. He's just a dickhead.
He is a dickhead, so I don't like him. I wouldn't go and see a movie just because it had Tom Cruise in it. Then again,
Well,
I wouldn't see a movie just
because
because
it gets me about Tom Cruise. I watch very few films, but he is a very good actor. I've seen him in some things where he's done really well, but most of the films he does are just shite, and you could just get anyone to do them.
Yes.
Like most of the roles he plays are not that challenging, but he has done the odd one that's been really good.
Yeah. Stevie C said that sounded like Christian Slater trying to sound like Jack Nicholson. Yes, that's what I just said. Is there a delay? We've got to wrap up. We've got to wrap up now because it's just past the hour. We've got another super chat just come in from Chris C. Thank you, Chris. Healthcare and education should be free to all. Yeah, exactly.
Well, free at point of use. I mean, we pay for them. We pay for them by our taxes. But yes, they should be free at point of use.
Absolutely.
And neither are. Even if your kid is in state school, even when I was teaching, you were still like tapping parents to contribute to funds for basics.
Yeah. Okay, so just to wrap up, for those who supported Brexit, sovereignty. They got their sovereignty.
Oh.
What?
I did a little. I didn't actually put that one in because no one can define it. But I did a little survey on my channel asking people to ask their Brexit friends what's their favourite Brexit benefit out of the trade deals which boost GDP by 0%, the higher inflation due to trade barriers with our main market, the record high immigration or other. And the record high immigration of 40% is the most popular.
There you go.
The biggest Brexit benefit.
But record high.
It's not a representative sample, I'll grant you. A survey on my channel. I do
like people coming from around the world to come to my country because I like people visiting. I'm just one of those people. I like people. I'm a people person. But yeah, they got their sovereignty. But when you talk about the economy,
you ask them for
travel,
a tangent.
Trade.
Give me an example of what.
It's been a fucking disaster. There you go.
Do you know what I get told if I find a Brexit supporter in the wild, which I occasionally do, and I just ask them, so can you give me an example of something?
Brexit supporter has appeared.
If you can give me an example of something you can do now that we couldn't before, and they just tell me to do my research properly and then piss off because they can't handle it. Oh, you need to do your research. It's like, yeah, it's my job, mate.
literally my job. And you've got you've that whole thing about doing your own research. It's something that no one who has done their research would ever say to someone because they'd explain because they've done the research. It's just a cop out. It's just I don't know. You tell me. You tell me the answer to the question that you've just asked me.
I had someone who tried to do it on the Rwanda scheme, and he'd say, "Oh yeah, your research is rubbish." I says, "Well." Because I said, well, this is the time, obviously, Swallow Braven was Home Secretary. I says, well, my research comes from the Home Office, where you're getting your Home Office data from that's better than the Home Office data.
Wow.
And they just ran away. In a huff.
Anyway, so, yeah. 5th anniversary of us leaving the EU. If you don't know what I did on this day 5 years ago, tune in tonight at 9:30 for the Friday night social, because I will tell you what I got up to this time 5 years ago, and it's quite hilarious. So please join us for that, and big thank you, big shout out to Phil for coming on the show, and to you for watching, everyone who dropped a chat in here, everyone who dropped a super chat in, thank you. You are all amazing. Chris C in there, and SG, and Andrew, and especially Russell for that amazing £50 super chat, which is just phenomenal. Thank you so much, mate. So that's it. Just give us a like on the way out if you're so inclined. Hopefully I'll see you at 9:30 tonight, and until next time, I'll say hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.